The stars looked different from the command deck of the Krazak hunter ship. Commander Zexkor stood tall, his scaled skin reflecting the dim red light of the bridge. His 3 eyes narrowed as he studied the blue-green planet on the main screen. "Another hunting ground," he said, clicking his jaw spikes together. "The scouts report primitive technology and no space defenses. The creatures look soft, weak." The hunter beside him, Sub-Commander Vril, nodded. 53 species conquered and none have resisted for long. These will be the same. The Krazak were the terror of 3 galactic arms. They stood 7 feet, tall with tough scaled skin that could deflect primitive projectiles. Their hands ended in sharp claws and their jaws could bite through metal. Evolution had made them perfect hunters, and their society was built on proving their dominance through conquest. "Send a small team," Zexkor ordered. 5 hunters. Capture a few specimens from an isolated area. We will study them before the main harvest begins. Vril hesitated. "Protocol suggests observation for at least 1 full planetary cycle before I have led 12 successful hunts," Zexkor interrupted. "These creatures barely have aircraft. They are nothing we haven't seen before." The small Krazak shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere under cover of darkness. Their cloaking technology hid them from the primitive radar systems of the humans. They chose a landing spot near a forest outside a small town called Pinewood. Montana Frank Miller couldn't sleep. At 53, the retired Marine often found himself awake in the early hours, memories of old battles keeping him company. He sat on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the stars. 20 years of military service had trained him to notice details. So when a shimmer moved across the night sky, blocking out stars as it passed, he noticed. "That's no plane," he muttered, setting down his coffee. Frank wasn't the only one awake in Pinewood that night. Sheriff Karen Peterson was driving back from checking on old Mrs. Winters, who had called about strange noises. Karen had served 10 years in military intelligence before returning to her hometown. She too saw something strange in the sky, but unlike the other residents of Pinewood, she didn't dismiss it as imagination. The 5 Krazak hunters moved silently through the forest. They could see perfectly in the dark with their heat-sensing vision. Their leader, Grak, had hunted on 17 worlds. "Spread out," he ordered. "Take 1 specimen each. Remember, the commander wants them alive." The aliens moved toward the sleeping town, confident in their superiority. They had never failed before. Frank was checking his shotgun when he heard his dog growl. Rex was a good German shepherd, not given to barking at nothing. Frank moved to the window and peered out into the darkness. The moonlight showed nothing unusual in his yard, but Rex continued to growl, his eyes fixed on the tree line. "What is it, boy?" Frank whispered, reaching for his flashlight. In the forest, one of the Krazak hunters paused. He had spotted a dwelling, separated from the others, an easy target. Inside, his heat vision showed one creature moving around, unaware of the danger approaching. The hunter moved closer, claws extended, anticipating an easy capture. Sheriff Peterson was driving slowly along the edge of town when her radio crackled. "Sheriff? This is Bill from the gas station. You might think I'm crazy, but I just saw something big run across the road by Miller's place. Too big to be a bear." Karen frowned. "I'll check it out," she said, turning her car toward Frank's house. She had known Frank since high school. He wasn't the type to need help, but something about tonight felt wrong. Frank was on his back porch when he heard a sound like claws on wood. He turned just as a massive shape lunged from the shadows. In the split second before it reached him, the moonlight revealed a nightmare, a tall, scaled creature with 3 glowing eyes and a mouth full of teeth. Marine training kicked in. Frank dropped and rolled as the creature crashed into the spot where he had been standing. He came up with his shotgun raised and fired without hesitation. The blast caught the alien in the shoulder, knocking it back. The Krazak hunter screamed, in surprise and pain. No prey had ever fought back so quickly, so effectively. It recovered and lunged again, this time more cautiously. Frank retreated into his workshop, mind racing. The shotgun had hurt it, but not stopped it. He needed something else. His eyes fell on his tool bench as the creature burst through the door, Sheriff Peterson heard the shotgun blast from a quarter-mile away. She hit the accelerator, grabbing her radio. Possible shots fired at Frank Miller's place, she reported, then added, sending backup, though she knew the nearest deputy was 20 minutes away. Inside the workshop, Frank swung a metal pipe at the creature's head, connecting with a solid thud. The alien staggered but kept coming. Its claws raked across Frank's arm, drawing blood. Frank kicked over a can of paint thinner, then grabbed his welding torch from the bench. "Come on, you ugly bastard," he muttered. The Krazak hunter had never seen prey fight with such determination. It was confused but still confident in its superior strength. It moved forward, ready to end this strange resistance. Frank flicked the lighter and ignited the torch. As the alien lunged, he sprayed the flame across the spilled chemicals. Fire erupted between them, catching on the alien's scales. The Krazak shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, as flames engulfed its lower body. Karen pulled up to Frank's house just as an inhuman scream split the night. Gun drawn, she ran toward the workshop. What she saw through the open door froze her in place. Frank Miller facing off against a burning creature straight out of a nightmare. Frank saw Karen in the doorway. "Get down!" he shouted, as the burning alien made one last desperate attack. Frank sidestepped and used the creature's momentum to send it crashing into his workbench. Tools and chemicals rained down as the bench collapsed. The alien tried to rise once more, then went still. In the silence that followed, Frank and Karen stared at each other, then at the dead creature on the workshop floor. "What the hell is that?" Karen finally asked. Before Frank could answer, they heard more inhuman cries from the direction of town. "There are more of them," Frank said grimly, grabbing a fresh shotgun from his gun cabinet, "and I don't think they're friendly." By dawn, Pinewood was in chaos. 2 more aliens had been killed, one by Karen and several armed townspeople, another by crashing its strange vehicle while pursuing a school bus driver named Joe White. At least 5 people were missing, taken by the creatures. Everyone had seen them now, there was no hiding the truth. On his ship, Commander Zek's corps received the unthinkable news. 3 hunters dead, 2 missing, 0 specimens captured. "Impossible," he growled. "They are primitive prey." "The reports are clear, Commander," Vril said, his voice shaking. "These humans, they fight back. They use tools and tactics. They cooperate. They are unlike any prey we have hunted before." Zexcor stared at the blue planet on his screen, rage and disbelief warring in his 3 eyes. "Prepare a full assault team," he ordered. "No species resist the Krazak. We will show these humans their place in the natural order." But deep in his hunter's heart, something new stirred, a feeling the Krazak rarely experienced: fear. 6 months had passed since the night the aliens came to Pinewood. The world had changed forever. News of the attack spread quickly, first treated as a hoax, then as a terrifying reality when more ships appeared in the skies above major cities. The creatures called themselves the Krazak. They were hunters and humans were their prey, or so they thought. Colonel Alan Wright stood at the window of his Pentagon office, watching rain streak the glass. On his desk lay reports from around the world, each telling the same story. The Krazak were strong, fast, and deadly, but humans were fighting back, and often winning. "The Chicago Defense Force took down 3 more of their ships yesterday," said Dr. Lisa Hernandez from behind him. The xenobiologist had spent months studying the alien biology from recovered specimens. "They're learning to target the propulsion systems." Alan nodded. "What have you found from the latest autopsy?" Lisa placed a folder on his desk. "The Krazak evolved as ambush predators. They have incredible strength and natural weapons, but poor endurance. In a quick fight, they win. In a drawn-out battle, we have the advantage. So we're the persistence hunters," Alan said with a grim smile. "Our ancestors chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Looks like we'll do the same to these aliens." On the massive Krazak mothership orbiting the dark side of the moon, Commander Zexicor faced the holographic images of the High Hunt Council. Their displeasure was evident in the way their jaw spikes clattered. "Explain your failure," demanded the largest figure, High Hunter Morgval. No prey species has ever resisted a proper hunt. Yet these humans have destroyed 17 hunter ships and killed over 200 warriors. Zexcor fought to control his anger. These creatures are different. They use tools in ways we never anticipated. They coordinate their actions across vast distances. They adapt to our tactics with surprising speed. Excuses, hissed another council member. Perhaps we need a new hunt leader. No. Zexcor's claws dug into his palm. I will lead the next assault myself. I will show these humans their place in the natural order. The council members looked at each other, then back to Zexcor. Very well. You have one final chance. Fail, and you will become prey yourself. The hologram disappeared, leaving Zexcor alone with his rage and a growing sense of doubt. In Chicago, National Guard Captain Steve Rodriguez inspected the city's new defense grid. After 3 smaller attacks, everyone knew the Krozak would return with greater numbers. This time, they would be ready. The sonic disruptors are in place, reported his lieutenant, Debbie Martinez. Research had shown the aliens were sensitive to certain sound frequencies. And the infrared scramblers should confuse their vision. Steve nodded approval. And the evacuation plan? Ready to implement at a moment's notice. The underground shelters can hold most of the population. Steve had fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, but nothing had prepared him for fighting actual aliens. Yet humans were nothing if not adaptable. They learned, they prepared, and they fought with everything they had. The warning came at dawn. Radar stations detected multiple objects entering Earth's atmosphere, heading straight for Chicago. The city's sirens wailed as people rushed to the shelters. Steve and his forces took up their positions, weapons ready. The Krozak ships appeared in the morning sky, larger and more numerous than before. Leading them was Zexcor's personal command vessel, its red hull gleaming in the sunlight. Let them come, Steve said into his radio. Stick to the plan. The first ships landed in Grant Park, disgorging hundreds of Krozak warriors. They moved with deadly purpose, expecting the humans to flee in terror as prey should. Instead, they met organized resistance. The first trap was sprung as they advanced down Michigan Avenue. Sonic emitters hidden in the buildings activated, sending painful waves of sound that disoriented the aliens. The Krozak faltered, their coordinated attack breaking down into confusion. Now, Steve ordered. National Guard troops opened fire from protected positions. Special ammunition designed based on Dr. Hernandez's research penetrated the aliens' scaled hide. The Krozak fought back fiercely, but found their usual tactics failing. Their infrared vision, normally an advantage in hunting, was useless against the scramblers that made all heat signatures blur together. In his command ship, Zexcor watched with growing horror as his warriors fell. This was not how hunts were supposed to go. Prey ran, prey died. Prey did not set traps and fight strategically. Land the ship, he ordered. I will lead the warriors myself. His second-in-command, Vril, hesitated. Commander, the humans have adapted to our methods. Perhaps we should retreat and develop new... No! Zexcor slashed his claws across Vril's face. No prey defeats the Krozak. Land now. The command ship descended into the chaos of battle. Zexcor emerged with his elite guard, determined to show these humans the true might of a Krozak hunt leader. Steve Rodriguez saw the larger ship land and knew an opportunity when he saw one. All units focus fire on the new arrival, he ordered. That has to be their leader. The battle for Chicago raged for hours. The Krozak fought with savage fury, but the humans refused to break. For every building the aliens destroyed, for every human they killed, the resistance only grew stronger. People who had never held weapons before joined the fight, using whatever they could find. Construction workers operated heavy equipment as makeshift weapons. Civilians guided soldiers to flanking positions through back alleys they knew well. Zexcor had never experienced anything like it. His warriors were falling all around him, not to superior strength but to superior tactics and determination. When a human soldier got close enough to throw a grenade at his feet, Zexcor realized the unthinkable was happening. The Krozak were losing. Retreat, he finally ordered, his pride shattered. All warriors returned to ships. The surviving Krazak fought their way back to their vessels. Many didn't make it. Those who did carried with them a new understanding of these strange creatures called humans. They were not just prey. They were something else entirely. As the alien ships lifted off, Steve Rodriguez allowed himself a moment of relief before organizing medical teams. Chicago had held, but at great cost. Buildings burned, bodies lay in the streets, and the wounded cried out for help. In the Pentagon, Colonel Wright received the news of the Chicago victory with mixed emotions. They had won a battle, but the war was just beginning. "What do you think they'll do now?" he asked Dr. Hernandez as they examined footage of the retreating ships. Lisa studied the images carefully. "They'll adapt just like we did. But now they know something they didn't before." "What's that?" "That in all their centuries of hunting across the galaxy, they've finally met a species that hunts back." On his damaged ship, Zexkor nursed his wounds and his wounded pride. For the first time in his life, he felt fear, not just for himself but for his entire species. The High Hunt Council would not be pleased, but that was the least of his concerns now. The humans would not stay on their planet forever. They would come looking for the hunters. And when they did, the galaxy would learn a terrible truth. The greatest predators in the universe had just awakened. 1 year had passed since the first Krazak ship appeared over Pinewood. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Countries that were once enemies now worked together against a common threat. Scientists studied the alien technology, from crashed ships learning their secrets bit by bit, and humans had started to fight back, not just on Earth but in space. Major Susan Clark stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, the first human warship built with reverse-engineered Krazak technology. Through the large viewing window, Earth looked small and vulnerable, a blue marble, against the blackness of space. "Engine test complete," reported Kevin Barnes, the navigator. "All systems normal." Susan nodded. At 39, she had spent most of her career flying fighter jets. Now she commanded a spaceship with a crew of 200. Sometimes it still felt like a dream. "Weapons check?" she asked. Richard Johnson, a former artillery specialist, tapped on his console. "All weapons systems ready. The new plasma cannons are fully charged." Their mission was simple but dangerous. Find and destroy the Krazak supply ships that orbited Earth. Cut off the aliens' resources and force them to retreat. "Begin operation," Susan ordered. "Activate stealth systems." The Defiance disappeared from radar as it moved away from Earth's protective fleet. They were hunting the hunters now. Back on Earth, Frank Miller watched a new group of recruits practice hand-to-hand combat techniques. After his encounter with the first Krazak hunter, Frank had become valuable to the military. He knew how the aliens fought, how they thought. "They're stronger than us," he told the men and women in front of him. "They're faster, but they tire quickly and they don't adapt well. Remember that." The recruits nodded, their faces serious. Many had lost family to the alien attacks. All were determined to fight back. Karen Peterson entered the training room. The former sheriff now led a special tracking unit that hunted Krazak infiltrators across North America. "Frank, we've got a situation," she said. "The aliens have sent a new type of hunter team. They call themselves the Shade Stalkers. They've landed in the Rocky Mountains." Frank frowned. "How do we know this?" "We captured one of their communication devices," Dr. Hernandez translated it. "These aren't regular hunters, they're some kind of elite force. They've never failed a mission in 300 years. Frank looked at the recruits, then back at Karen. "Well, there's a first time for everything." In the dense forests of the Rocky Mountains, the Shade Stalkers moved with practiced precision. Led by the legendary Vashanar, they were the pride of the Krazak hunting forces. Their scales were darker than regular warriors, their senses more acute. "This area will serve as our base," Vashanar told his team of 12 elite hunters. "From here we will begin specialized raids against human military targets. We will show them true fear." The Shade Stalkers had studied the earlier failures. They would not repeat those mistakes. They would adapt, as hunters should. What they didn't know was that humans were already tracking them. Karen's team watched the aliens from a safe distance, using special cameras that could see through the Krozak camouflage technology. Frank studied their movements, noting how they differed from the hunters he had faced before. "They're more careful," he whispered. "More methodical." Karen nodded. "So are we. Special Forces teams are moving into position. We'll hit them tonight." In space, the UNS Defiance had found its first target, a large Krozak supply ship moving toward Earth's orbit. Susan assessed the situation carefully. "Their shields are stronger than we expected," Richard reported. "A direct attack might not work." Susan thought for a moment. Human ingenuity had gotten them this far. It would have to take them further. "What if we don't attack directly?" she said. "Kevin, can you plot a course that will take us through that debris field?" The navigator looked confused, then understanding dawned on his face. "Yes, ma'am, but it will be risky." "So is everything about this mission," Susan replied. "Let's show these aliens how humans fight." The Defiance moved carefully through the floating debris from previous battles. As they passed each large piece, they attached small explosive devices. Then they retreated to a safe distance and sent a signal. The explosion sent the debris hurtling toward the Krozak supply ship. The aliens detected the incoming threat and raised their shields, but they weren't prepared for what came next. "Fire main weapons," Susan ordered. The Defiance's plasma cannons hit the Krozak ship exactly where its shields were weakest from deflecting the debris. The alien vessel didn't stand a chance. It broke apart in a spectacular explosion. "Target destroyed," Richard reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Susan allowed herself a small smile. "One down. Let's find the next one." In the mountains, the battle between Special Forces and Shadestalkers had begun. The elite Krozak hunters were indeed formidable. They moved like shadows through the trees, their natural weapons deadly in close combat. But the humans had prepared. They used sound emitters to disrupt the alien sensitive hearing. They deployed drones that confused the Krozak heat vision. Most importantly, they fought with a determination that surprised the alien hunters. Frank led a small team through the forest, setting traps and ambushes. When one of the Shadestalkers cornered them in a narrow canyon, Frank didn't retreat. "Now!" he shouted. Hidden soldiers fired nets made of special material that the Krozak claws couldn't cut. The alien warrior fell, tangled and helpless. For the first time in his long life, the hunter had become the hunted. Vashanar couldn't believe the reports coming in. Half his team was dead or captured. The humans were everywhere, using the terrain and their knowledge of the area to perfect advantage. "We must retreat," his second-in-command advised. "We can return with more warriors." Vashanar hissed in anger. Shadestalkers do not retreat. But as another explosion rocked their position, he realized he had underestimated these humans. The Bayayu Krozak had always believed themselves to be the apex predators of the galaxy. Now that belief was being challenged. In orbit, the battle had escalated. The Defiance had destroyed 2 more supply ships when a large Krozak warship appeared. Susan recognized it from intelligence reports, the personal command ship of Zexkor himself. "He's come to face us personally," Susan said, watching the massive ship approach. "All hands prepare for combat." The alien vessel was twice the size of the Defiance, with weapons that could tear through their hull. But Susan had one advantage Zexkor didn't. She knew that winning wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being the smartest. "Kevin, plot an intercept course," she ordered. "Richard, prepare all weapons. Let's show Commander Zexkor that humans aren't just prey. We're the most dangerous hunters the galaxy has ever seen." As the 2 ships closed on each other, a new chapter in the war was about to begin. The battle between the UNS Defiance and Commander Zexkor's warship was unlike anything humans had experienced before. The Krozak vessel fired weapons that left burning trails across the emptiness of space. The Defiance shook with each near miss. "Evasive maneuvers," Major Susan Clark ordered. Her voice remained calm despite the danger. "They're trying to herd us toward their secondary weapons." Kevin Barnes's hands moved quickly over the navigation controls. They're predicting our movements too easily. Susan nodded. The Krazak thought, like hunters anticipating prey's escape routes. Then let's be unpredictable. Execute pattern Omega-3. The Defiant suddenly cut its engines and rotated, facing the oncoming Krazak ship head-on. It was a move no prey would make, to turn and face a predator instead of fleeing. The alien ship hesitated, giving Richard Johnson the opening he needed. Firing main cannons! Plasma bolts struck the Krazak warship's forward section. The alien vessel shuddered but returned fire immediately. The Defiance took a direct hit to its port side. Hull breach in Section 4, a crew member shouted. Emergency teams responding. Susan gripped her command chair. This was the true test of humanity's resolve. On the Krazak ship, Commander Zexkor watched the human vessel with growing frustration. These creatures fought with unexpected skill. Target their propulsion systems, he ordered. Without movement, they are nothing, his weapons officer obeyed. But the human ship kept changing course in ways that made no tactical sense to Krazak military doctrine. They would appear to retreat, then suddenly attack. They would seem vulnerable, only to reveal it was a trap. Commander, his second-in-command said quietly, these humans do not fight like prey. Zexkor snarled. Then we will destroy them like enemies. The battle continued for hours, both ships taking damage. The Defiance was smaller, but more maneuverable. The Krazak warship had stronger weapons but followed predictable attack patterns that Susan quickly learned to anticipate. Finally, Susan saw her opportunity. All power to forward shields and engines. We're going to make a run directly at them. Her crew looked at her in shock. Ma'am, that's suicide, Richard protested. No, Susan said with determination. It's the last thing they'll expect. Prepare boarding teams. The Defiance suddenly accelerated toward the Krazak ship at maximum speed. Zexkor, expecting another feint, ordered evasive action too late. The human vessel scraped along the alien ship's hull, magnetic clamps engaging at key points. Special Forces troops in spacesuits cut their way into the Krazak vessel. The aliens fought fiercely but were unprepared for combat in the tight corridors of their own ship. The human soldiers had trained specifically for this scenario. Susan led the team heading for the bridge. She had studied Krazak ship layouts from captured vessels. When they encountered resistance, her team used sonic weapons that disoriented the aliens without damaging the ship's systems. On the bridge, Zexkor received reports of humans throughout his ship. This was unprecedented. No species had ever dared to board a Krazak hunter vessel. Seal the command deck, he ordered. Prepare for... The doors exploded inward. Susan and her team entered, weapons ready. Zexkor looked at the small human female who led the attack and felt something he had never experienced before, respect for prey. Commander Zexkor, Susan said, keeping her weapon trained on him. Your ship is taken. Surrender. For a moment, it seemed the Krazak commander would fight to the death. Then, slowly, he lowered his clawed hands. The hunt is yours, he said in the human language he had learned. For now. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Hernandez made a breakthrough. With Commander Zexkor in custody, she had been able to establish more effective communication with the alien leader. Their entire society is based on hunting, she explained to Colonel Wright as they watched Zexkor in his specially designed cell. They divide all species into two categories, hunters and prey. And we were classified as prey, Wright said. Lisa nodded. Until we proved otherwise. That's what's causing such confusion in their society. We're the first species they've encountered that successfully hunts back. In his cell, Zexkor watched the humans with new understanding. His capture had been humiliating, but it had also been educational. These humans were not like any species the Krazak had encountered in their long history of conquest. When Lisa entered his cell to continue their discussions, Zexkor studied her carefully. Your kind does not make sense to us, he admitted. You are not physically superior. Your claws are weak. Your teeth are flat. Yet you defeat our best hunters. We evolved differently, Lisa explained. We don't have natural weapons, so we created them. We don't have natural armor, so we built shelters. We turned our weaknesses into strengths. Zexkor considered this. You were prey that became predators. We were survivors who learned to adapt, Lisa corrected. That's more dangerous than being just a predator. The information Lisa gathered from Zexcor proved invaluable. The Krazak Empire stretched across multiple star systems. Their homeworld lay just 70 light-years from Earth. And most importantly, the High Hunt Council, which ruled all Krazak, was deeply disturbed by the reports of human resistance. Colonel Wright gathered the military leadership to share this intelligence. We now have coordinates for the Krazak homeworld, he announced. And we have something else. Knowledge of their psychology. They only respect strength. Negotiations won't work until we demonstrate that we can threaten them directly. You're suggesting we take the fight to their homeworld? A general asked. I'm suggesting we show them that humans aren't just defending Earth. We're capable of taking the hunt to them. The plan that emerged was bold. 3 ships, the Defiance and 2 newly constructed vessels, would travel to the Krazak homeworld. Their mission was not to attack but to demonstrate humanity's reach, to force the High Hunt Council to recognize humans as equals, not prey. Frank Miller was asked to join the mission. His experience with the Krazak made him valuable, especially with Zexcor now willing to provide information in exchange for better treatment. I never thought I'd go to space, Frank told Karen, as they watched the ships being prepared. Certainly never thought I'd visit an alien planet. Karen smiled. Just another day for the people of Pinewood, right? Frank laughed. They both remembered that night a year ago when the first hunter came. How much had changed since then? As the 3 ships prepared for their historic journey, news came from the front lines. The Shadestalkers had been defeated in the Rocky Mountains. Earth was, for the moment, secure from major Krazak incursions. Colonel Wright looked at the final mission, reports. The next stage of this war begins now. We're no longer just defending our world. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you mistake humans for easy prey. The ships departed Earth orbit, carrying humanity's message to the stars. The hunters would soon learn that they had awakened something they never expected, a species that refused to be hunted. The journey to the Krazak homeworld took 3 weeks. The 3 human ships, Defiance, Valiant, and Challenger, traveled through space using the drive technology reverse-engineered from captured alien vessels. Frank Miller spent much of his time looking out at the stars, still amazed that a retired Marine from a small town in Montana was now part of humanity's first diplomatic mission to an alien world. Never thought I'd see this, he said to Colonel Wright as they stood on the observation deck of the Defiance. None of us did, Wright replied. A year ago we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're taking the fight to their home. In his secured quarters, Commander Zexcor provided information about his world. He had accepted his capture with a strange sense of honor. The humans had proven themselves worthy opponents, and Krazak tradition demanded respect for such enemies. The High Hunt Council will not welcome you, he warned Dr. Hernandez during their daily session. They have ruled for 10,000 years and they have never faced a challenge like humans. We don't want war, Lisa insisted. We want recognition. Respect. Zexcor made a sound that might have been a laugh. To the Krazak, these things must be earned through strength. You cannot simply ask for them. As they approached the Krazak system, the ships detected heavy defensive arrays around the orange-red planet. Major Susan Clark ordered all weapon systems ready, but hoped they wouldn't be needed. We're being hailed, reported Kevin Barnes from his station. A large holographic image appeared on the command deck. A Krazak elder, his scales faded to a pale green with age, stared at the humans with obvious disgust. I am High Hunter Morgval of the Council. You have violated Krazak space. Explain yourselves before you are destroyed. Colonel Wright stepped forward. We come representing Earth and humanity. We have Commander Zexcor aboard, and we propose a meeting. The elder's 3 eyes widened. Zexcor lives, and he allows himself to be transported by prey? Not prey, Frank Miller said, stepping into view. Equals. That's why we've come. To establish that humans will not be hunted. We are not prey, and we never will be. High Hunter Morgval seemed about to order an attack when Zexkor was brought to the communication area. The Krazak commander stood tall despite his prisoner status. High Hunter, Zexkor said formally. These humans have proven themselves to be unlike any species we have encountered. They fight not just with strength but with intelligence that exceeds our own in many ways. I recommend the council meet with them. There was a long silence as Morgval considered this unprecedented situation. Finally, he said, "You may approach the third moon. A delegation will meet you there. Any aggressive action will result in your immediate destruction." The communication ended. Richard Johnson looked at his weapons display nervously. "They have over 50 warships in range. And we have something they've never seen," Susan replied. "A prey species that doesn't run." The meeting took place in an ancient stone structure on the barren third moon of the Krazak homeworld. 5 members of the High Hunt Council sat on elevated seats, looking down at the human delegation. Frank, Colonel Wright, Dr. Hernandez, and Major Clark represented Earth. "We have reviewed the reports of your resistance," Morgval began. "It is unexpected. Humans have a long history of adapting to challenges," Dr. Hernandez explained. "When faced with stronger predators in our evolution, we developed tools and tactics. We became persistence hunters able to pursue prey over long distances. These traits served us well when your people came to hunt us." Another council member leaned forward. "You suggest we should not hunt your kind?" "We suggest," Colonel Wright said firmly, "that any further aggression against Earth will be met with a response you won't enjoy. We don't want war, but we will finish one if necessary." The council members clicked their jaw spikes in what Zexkor had told them was a sign of agitation. "For 50,000 years the Krazak have been the supreme hunters of the galaxy," Morgval said. "Our entire society is built on this truth." "Perhaps it's time for your society to evolve," Frank suggested, "just as humans did." The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Krazak were proud and resistant to change, but they were not fools. The human ships in their system represented a species that had gone from primitive technology to interstellar travel in just 1 year. A species that had defeated their best hunters and captured one of their most decorated commanders. Finally, an agreement was reached. The Krazak would recognize Earth as a protected world. Humans would not be classified as prey, but as a fellow hunter species. In return, humans would share certain technologies and allow limited cultural exchange. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Morgval approached Frank privately. "You were the first," the elder said. "The first human to kill a Krazak hunter." Frank nodded cautiously. "I was defending my home." "As any worthy hunter would." Morgval extended a ceremonial dagger, its handle made from what looked like bone. Among the Krazak, when a younger hunter proves himself against an elder, a gift is traditional. Frank accepted the dagger with appropriate solemnity. "Thank you. I hope our species can learn from each other." "That remains to be seen," Morgval said. "But you have earned the right to try." 5 years passed. The peace between humans and Krazak held, though tensions remained. Earth recovered from the invasion and used alien technology to advance rapidly. The first human colony ships were already heading to nearby star systems. Frank Miller returned to his role as ambassador, now representing Earth to the entire Galactic Assembly, a coalition of species that the humans had been surprised to discover existed beyond Krazak space. Many of these species had suffered under Krazak raids for centuries and viewed humans with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Karen Peterson oversaw the joint Human-Krazak Security Force, tasked with maintaining the fragile peace. Her experience tracking the aliens during the war made her uniquely qualified for the role. Commander Zexkor, now released from captivity, had become an advocate for reform among his people. The experience of being prey had changed him profoundly. When he met Frank at the Galactic Assembly headquarters, there was mutual respect between former enemies. "Your people continue to surprise us," Zexkor said, as they walked through the great hall. "Already you have colonies and your technology advances at an alarming rate. We adapt, Frank said simply. It's what humans do best. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. A new threat had appeared at the edge of known space. Massive ships of unknown design destroying everything in their path. The assembly was in panic. Species that had been enemies for millennia faced extinction together. In this desperate hour, all eyes turned to the alliance of the most unlikely partners, humans and Krazak. It seems, Zexkor said grimly, that we will hunt together now. Frank nodded, already thinking of strategies. And may whatever's out there beware. They're about to discover what happens when the galaxy's deadliest hunters work together. As the assembly prepared for war, a new chapter in galactic history began. Humans had arrived on the cosmic stage not as victims or conquerors but as survivors, and they would survive this too.